In a world where drones can deliver food, robotic dogs can search for life in rubble, and VR glasses can transport us to the metaverse, the possibilities of AI technologies seem endless. As leading experts prepare for insightful discussions about AI at the upcoming World AI Conference in Shanghai, a crucial question looms large. Can those game-changing technologies reach the world's most marginalized areas? And can the least developed countries have their fair share of AI development? This week on Deep Dive, I spoke with my colleague Dou Hongyu. At the second Belt and Road International Skills Competition that just concluded in Chongqing in southwest China, she sat down with a contestant from Tanzania to explore how the country works to achieve its AI vision. This episode is brought to you on Wednesday, July the 3rd. So, Hongyu, first, can you tell us about the contestant and what did he do at the competition?
The contestant, his name is Salum Simba Omari. He's a student of computer engineering in Tanzania, and he took part in the contest of the Internet of Things installation and debugging. I guess we first need to clarify what is the Internet of Things. It's quite a basic concept, but we normally don't talk about it because it's the foundation of artificial intelligence. We talk about AI a lot. The AI technologies in our daily lives are mostly based on the Internet of Things, or IoT. For example, in the hotel I lived in when covering the skills competition, there was a robot that delivered food from the first floor to our rooms. The food I ordered from the internet were put into the robot, then it went to the elevator and waited for the elevator, and then the elevator would know which floor it would go to and would bring it to the floor, and then the robot would directly come to my door and activate the doorbell.
Okay.
The robot, the elevator, and the electric doorbell can talk to each other through the internet.
Everything is connected.
Yes, we call it an AI technology, but the basic logic is actually IoT. And during the competition, the mission of Omari is to first install a few devices like electric bulbs, Wi-Fi routers, sensors, and fire sprinklers, and then program on a computer to make sure that all those devices work according to the assignment, and then put the data collected by the sensors to an online system. It's just like a simulation of the real-life application of IoT.
Okay, so very important and promising technology. And how did Amari perform at this competition? What was the result?
Well, that was a quite tense competition. He was not a medal winner, but it's important to note that for Omari and his country, it is already a huge breakthrough to be able to take part in such a competition. Because to take part in this contest means that there's already an industry like this, or at least it plans to nurture the IoT industry. But the threshold for developing IoT is quite high because the real-time coordination among different devices requires fast and stable internet connection. And that's why we call the Internet of Things the technology in the era of 5G. But in Tanzania, most people are using 3G, 4G, and in many remote areas, people are not connected to the internet. So for a country like this to be able to take part in this competition is already what makes it a winner.
As you said earlier, Internet of Things is not as commonly known as artificial intelligence. So why did Omari decide to study this era? And is this technology quite a popular one in Tanzania?
Well, the reason why Omari chose to study IoT is that he has seen the future where everything's connected in Tanzania. He repeatedly talked about the example in agriculture, especially farming.
We farm rice, but it is very hard to monitor the farming.
He said we can use sensors to monitor farming conditions, and he's seen countries that use drones to spray pesticides to prevent diseases. But in Tanzania, the methods of farming are still very primitive.
But in our country, we are still depends on native ways to monitor the farm and to protect our farms from diseases and other factors which in most cases end up losing.
In that country, it's very difficult to estimate how many students want to learn IoT or how many are needed. But according to a Tanzanian judge of IoT, in fact, each participating country has sent a contestant and a judge to this contest. The judge from Tanzania, called Christian Nabora, he said each sector in the country, including agriculture, transportation, manufacturing, they all need talent like Omari, who can help to deploy IoT technologies or AI technologies in the very specific sector in the country.
So there seems to be a quite high threshold for entering this era of artificial intelligence. And Tanzania also seems to be quite dedicated in developing this technology. So what's the country's ambition in this field?
Tanzania has this ambition to be the center of the digital economy in Africa. And digital economy is largely supported by artificial intelligence. For example, in manufacturing, you need robotic arms to improve the production efficiencies. And if you want to have an online shopping market, you at least need a very strong logistics system. And if you take a look at China's logistics system, in those busy distribution centers, it is not human beings, but the robotic vehicles that are distributing those parcels to the right directions. In order to achieve the goal of being the nucleus of digital economy in Africa, it needs artificial intelligence to empower this industry. And it's also making lots of efforts in this. According to the country's Minister of Education, Science and Technology, they're already investing in infrastructure, equipment, and expertise development to cope with the pace of technological advancement.
You brought up the example of China, and the infrastructure in China wasn't built in one day, 1 month, or even 1 year. And there will be many prerequisite conditions for Tanzania to reach its goal, for sure, and have these requirements in its infrastructure being accomplished in Tanzania.
Yes, because it's one of the most basic needs for the development of AI or digitalization. But when we talk about the infrastructure, especially the internet infrastructure, there are two things. The first is a wider coverage of the internet, but it is very difficult for the country to broaden the coverage of the internet all by itself because it requires the equipment, the facilities, and the skills and expertise. So it needs a cooperation framework to support it. On the other hand, China is really good at building those infrastructures, and it has the will to help its Belt and Road partner countries to build such infrastructure. So the two countries are working together to broaden the internet coverage. For example, China's tech giant Huawei is under a memorandum of understanding with Tanzania's telecommunications company to deploy internet infrastructure in this country. And that resulted in a fast growth of internet usage. Like so far this year, the number of mobile internet subscribers in Tanzania has grown over 11% from last year. And the mobile money service users has grown about 20% from last year. And now the high-speed internet even reached the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, which is Africa's highest mountain located in Tanzania. And most of the telecommunication equipment on that mountain is provided by Huawei. With the wide usage of the internet, the country can further push forward data collection and transportation, which is also part of the foundation of AI deployment. So this is the first thing about internet infrastructure, the wider usage and coverage. And the second thing is the upgrade of the internet. 3G and 4G are not fast and stable enough. They need 5G. China and Tanzania are under a partnership agreement to build such 5G technologies in that country. About 2 years ago, Tanzania established its own 5G. Omari is very proud of it. He talked about it twice to me.
They applied the infrastructure for 5G. We are using the infrastructure to pave the ways, either for others or for ourselves.
5G is not very widely used in that country, but it at least pushed the country above the threshold of developing IoT because now it's officially in the era of 5G. This is about the hardware. It's like the fishing metaphor. You should not only give them the fish, but also teach them how to fish. Now, Tanzania has got its fishing pole, the infrastructure. It also needs people to teach them how to use those infrastructure and how to deploy those technologies. And that is why one of the priorities of the BRI cooperation between China and Tanzania lies in the exchange of professionals. Like about 8 years ago, Huawei Tanzania launched a Seeds for the Future program to provide students from that country opportunities to visit China and to work in China's tech hub Shenzhen. There are also trainings targeting government officials and workers in telecommunication corporations in Tanzania. But most importantly, now, since the internet infrastructure has opened the possibilities for the country to develop AI, now it's constructing its own smart IT colleges to further expand its talent pool. So what makes it possible for this country to develop AI now is both the hardware, like the infrastructure, and the software, which is the education.
Okay, so it seems that AI or Internet of Things has really taken off in Tanzania. As you said earlier, agriculture could be a huge area of potential application for these technologies. But can you give us a bigger picture of why the country is motivated in developing AI?
The reason why the country is very motivated in deploying AI is that although AI is taking off in the country, it's now at a very, very low level. It started from government offices, like they're using AI systems to help with the transcription and translation processes in their judiciary systems. But according to the Tanzanian judge and the contestant, AI technologies or IoT is very rarely seen in other fields in the country, like transportation or logistics. And when I talk about this topic with Omari, something struck me very hard. Whenever I asked him about how IoT or artificial intelligence is developing in his country, he would first pause for a few seconds with a smile on his face. But that smile is not out of happiness, but a kind of speechlessness or self-mockery to his country.
To be honest, there are very, very low level.
And he kept asking, his country has already got the internet, but why is his country so far behind?
So I would suggest to my team leaders and Tanzanian judge that when they come back at home, they have to reconsider and to suggest to the authority what others are doing and what we are doing. How far behind are we?
He's seen those technologies, he's seen how AI devices are taken for granted by the time he arrived in China, in the hotels, in the competition venues, in the airports, and in other public areas, and why they're not in Tanzania. On the one hand, it is the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure, that has given Omari the hope for AI in the country. But at the same time, there's still a quite long way to go. I think this kind of mixture of hope and urgency is also the big picture of how AI is developing in Tanzania.
So it sounds like these AI technologies will be very helpful in boosting these developing countries and put them on a fast track of development. And back to this competition that Omari has taken part in. Are there other participants that are just like Omari from other developing countries in Africa?
Yes, and the proportion is quite surprising. There are several other contests involving digital technologies like industrial robots and unmanned aerial vehicles, and 1/3 of the contestants are from Africa. Some are from less developed countries like Gambia. I've been to the competition venue. The competition was using very advanced machines provided by Chinese tech companies. It took very short time for those African contestants to familiarize themselves to those machines. And they could finish their assignments during a very limited time of competition. And if you take a deeper look at the stories and the paths of AI development in their countries, you would find that their stories are quite similar. They have their own vision for AI and to boost digital economy with AI technologies. And they started from the low coverage of the internet and then a wider usage of the internet, the upgrade of internet connections, and also the cooperation on talent cultivation. Take Gambia as an example. It has its own digital economy master plan, and it's working with Chinese companies to expand their national broadband network. And that's also part of the Belt and Road Cooperation. The contestants from Africa are actually the outcome of these countries' vision for AI and their domestic policies, as well as the cooperation projects like those under the Belt and Road Initiative.
Okay, so very promising technology, very promising sector. But in terms of the students themselves, what will they get out of learning, competing in these technologies? How do their future look like?
Well, for Omari himself, he plans to start his own business to construct IoT devices, especially for agriculture, as he said. And according to the judge, most of these students will be self-employed after graduation instead of being employed.
Because the IoT is not much bigger in our country. So if it is an emerging technology, we expect these students after graduates. One thing is to tell them to look on how they can employ themselves more than be employed. How can use the technology or the knowledge they have, the skill they have to upgrade the country.
So I asked the judge, are they the pioneers of AI in Tanzania?
You cannot call them the pioneers because they are just learning.
Probably they will be pioneers of tomorrow.
Well, for tomorrow, be the pioneers of tomorrow.
Compared with a decade ago, it is already much easier for them to pave the way for AI development in this country because they've already got 5G and the world is more likely to pour more expertise and technologies into the global south. Because a couple of days ago, the United Nations adopted a resolution proposed by China on strengthening international cooperation in the capacity building of AI, especially in these developing countries. It focuses on capacity building of AI. It's more like giving them the ability to fish instead of just giving them the fish. I think this will definitely help young people like Omari to be the trailblazer for their own countries and have a stronger voice in the global AI blueprint.
So instead of entering the job market, they will create jobs themselves.
Exactly.
Thank you for speaking with us, Hongyu.
Thank you for having me.
The theme of this year's World AI Conference is Governing AI for Good and for All, which indicates that a future where AI benefits everyone is within reach. But with about 1/3 of the world's population not even connected to the internet, a pressing issue is broaden access to digital technologies so that AI will no longer be a dream far away for the left behind. And sharing is a powerful solution. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Deep Dive. If you enjoyed what you just heard, don't forget to follow us on your podcast platforms. Just search for Deep Dive. You can also leave a comment to let us know what you want to learn about China and beyond. This episode is brought to you by me, Li Yunqi, and my colleagues Zhang Zhang and Qi Zhi. Special thanks to CGTN radio reporter Dou Hongyu. I'll see you in the next one.